Здравствуйте, my fair weather friends, and welcome back to another episode of Kachimuchi's Game and Spooks. Today's episode of Kachimuchi's Game and Spooks is a very special occasion, even though it seems like all of my uploads are special occasions. By the end of this year, I will have officially been on YouTube for 3 years, give or take, which also means I have been producing Kachimuchi's Game and Spooks for 3 years as well. I'd like to say thank you to the 2 or 3 people who watched these episodes in the first place, in addition to an even bigger thank you to myself, as I'm certain I'm the one who garners the most views of my own content. With that pathetic reality out of the way, let us move on to today's episode. Today's featured creepypasta is the infamous Funnymouth by the incomparable Slime Beast. Quick disclaimer, this video is not being monetized, so please don't take this video down, Slime Beast. This was one of the first creepypastas I ever watched a narration of on YouTube, by the then YouTube newcomer, Some Ordinary Gamers. This story is about an internet forum user who takes an unnatural interest in an unnatural figure. Said figure then leads the user down a chasm of technological and physical destruction. Yeah, one of my top favorite creepypastas is an internet-based creepypasta. Big surprise there. Does this story still hold up after all these years that have passed and so many creepypastas experienced? Well, there's only one way to find out. And so, without any further ado, let us begin Funnymouth by Slime Beast. Funnymouth has joined #reefer sales. Funnymouth. Hello everyone tonight. I like to lick the blood out of in the person. I see your handsome face, don't be so sad about it. Come on. Smiley face. Funnymouth has left #reefer sales. Ghost George. Holy fuck. What the fuck? Lemon Lime Skull. Did that just happen? Ghost George. Yes, Skull. Yes, it did. The first thing I should probably note is that I'm Lemon Lime Skull. In other words, that's my screen name up there. That was the first time I saw or heard from quote-unquote Funnymouth, and for all intents and purposes, it should have been the last. Anyone who spent enough time chatting away knows that weirdos come and go. Folks pop in to ask inane questions or just to troll a populated channel. What first struck me as odd about the Funnymouth guy, however, was the fact that he came and went with no particular goal. He didn't try to piss anyone off, and he didn't ask if anyone on the channel knew how to fix his computer or remove a virus. He just stuck his head in, rattled off some random text, and happily fucked off. Lemon Lime Skull. So, really though, what the hell? Ghost Jorge. Not a clue. Not a clue. Lemon Lime Skull. He's in another channel if you want to find out. #blood. Ghost Jorge. I do not, sir. Lemon Lime Skull. XD. Bitch. I don't know what results I expected from following this guy to another channel. I'm not the type that goes out of his way to annoy or argue with people. I'll usually avoid it at all costs. Though once someone starts with me, I don't mind getting into it at that point. I guess what I'm saying is, I have no idea why I pursued this. Lemon Lime Skull has entered #blood. Lemon Lime Skull. Hey. He was just sitting there in the channel by himself. Funnymouth. Staring face. Lemon lime skull. Smiley face. So... Funny mouth. Staring face. Lemon lime skull. So you're staring at me. That's rude. Funny mouth. Sorry. I just do it. It's okay. Lemon lime skull. I see. Funny mouth. Staring face. I actually chuckled out loud at this point. He was weird and inoffensive. Lemon lime skull. You can come back to hashtag reefer sales if you want. We're not going to boot you if that's what you're worried about. Funny mouth. Staring face. Lemon lime skull. Or not. Whatever, man. You just seemed interesting, and I'm bored tonight. Funny mouth. I am broad tonight, too. I always don't. Lemon lime skull. You always don't what? Funny mouth. I always don't, that's it. I always don't because they don't, and then I get silly. Lemon lime skull. Okay, well, see you around. Funny mouth. Staring face. And with that, I left. The act got old fast, and I felt either this was someone trying too hard or a legitimate moron who was unaware of how to properly use a chat program. Sitting idly by yourself and popping into other channels for a split second seemed like a desperate bid for attention. I might have done that and laughed my ass off in or around the 90s, but yeah, stupid. Ghost Jorge. Lemon lime skull. Nothing. I seriously don't know what he was saying. Ghost Jorge. Welcome to the internet. Lemon lime skull. What's sad is that, besides you and me, that guy's the only active user here all night. Lemon lime skull kicks Killjay and shouts, "Wake up." Lemon lime skull. Blah. Silence dominated the channel for about a half hour, as I minimized the window and went about my business. Lemon lime skull. Anyone on? Nothing. 8 users in the channel, not a single one active. Lemon lime skull. Boring. Why are you people so boring? Funny mouth. Staring face. Lemon lime skull. Wake up. Lemon lime skull puts everyone's hand in a bowl of warm water. It took me a few seconds to see it. Funny mouth again. Staring again. I physically slumped my shoulders with a "not this shit again" sigh. Then I noticed he wasn't in the channel. Lemon lime skull. Question mark. Ellipses. Anyone else see him? Of course not, because you're idle. Obviously it was a glitch with either my client or the server. The message was kicked up from earlier in the night, at random. These things happen. Still, it creeped the hell out of me. After a few minutes of sitting there with a really cold, creepy feeling in my stomach that I shouldn't have done something feeling, I decided to stop trying to brave it out and just closed out the entire chat program. Sure, I could have just hung out like everything was fine, but why bother trying to prove I wasn't spooked? Hell, nobody was even around to see me slink away. After a few more hours of screwing around on the web, I went to bed at around 2:40 a.m. One thing I've always prided myself on is that I do not have nightmares. At least not regularly. Usually if there are monsters or ghosts or nuclear wars in my dreams, I get to control it, and I have a great time. I'm shooting zombies in the face, outright telling ghosts that they're not real while I laugh at them. And if there's some disaster, I always know how to get to the safe spot. while every other MFer fries. I've had maybe 4 actual nightmares in the past 10 years, and yes, I'm completely serious. The first nightmare of my adult life was in 2005. I'd just broken off a relationship with someone who had been with someone else for over a year behind my back. That night, when I finally did get to sleep, I dreamt she was strapped down on a medical table, while some sort of unseen, inexplicable creature sucked her brain out through an organic machine. The brain screamed ceaselessly. The second nightmare had me visiting a medical facility where they were experimenting with new methods of saving lives. There was a fantastic tour of this high-tech facility, lots of wonders of modern science, people in lab coats, etc. Then I was led to a room where 3 car crash victims had been, quote-unquote, saved by their techniques. This included a slowly rocking young girl whose face had been completely distended and hung around her chest, and a woman who was nothing but a cluster of twitching severed limbs, all held together by a drawn-out, kite-like span of flesh. The third came soon after the second. I was being accosted by 2 people, one who wanted to insult me to no end, and the other who kept trying to pinch and tweak me in absurdly ineffective ways. Thinking I could control the stream like the others, I set the 2 men against each other, thinking it would sort of be poetic justice. Instead, the pincher became increasingly violent until he was pulling at the other's cheeks, grabbing his tongue with a fist and furiously pulling at it until it came out. Then he pulled the fellow's eyelids until they distended in some sort of grotesque prolapse. I suppose what I'm getting at is, even when I did have nightmares, I was never the actual target of any sort of horror. It's always been a kind of empathetic horror, related to someone else getting brutalized. This night, however, was different. As soon as I fell asleep, I started dreaming. Basically, it was a recurring dream I have, where I'm in the woods, just checking out animals and birds and generally acting chill. I lie in the grass and look up at the sky. It's always a dream I welcome, because even if I've had a shit day, I wake up happy and ready to start over. This time, the script changed. I laid in the grass, but while I was staring at the sky, I felt something odd. It was a cold, squirming feeling on my neck. In the dream, I reached to my neck and pulled away a long, writhing earthworm. Earthworms disgust me. If I see one in the yard, I'll specifically get a shovel and heap dirt over it simply so I don't accidentally see it again. Disgusted but more or less content, I flung the worm aside and continued my dream. Then, that feeling again. Clammy, wet, wiggling against the side of my neck. I pulled another worm away. Again, it happened. The third time, the feeling of confusion and dread became so overwhelming that I immediately snapped myself out of the dream. That's usually what happens when shit gets real in my dreams. Game over. I figured it out, though. At least I thought I had. In the waking world, I felt my neck and discovered a slick, slimy film over my skin. Logic dictated that I must have been drooling in my sleep. Nothing to be proud of, but not exactly terrifying either. My dreaming mind must have translated the icky feeling into an appropriate creature in the forest dream. Perhaps more unsettling, though, was the fact that the bed around me seemed to have indentations, 4 to be exact. It was almost as if someone on hands and knees had been hovering over me as I slept. There was any number of reasons that could have happened, but from then on that night, I slept very lightly. Anything like the sound of a ceiling fan would wake me up straight away. I had no real interest in going back to the woods that night. When morning came around, I got ready to take off to get out of the house and shake the cobwebs out. I'd only planned to check my email real quick to make sure I didn't have any pending transactions or questions I had to answer. Surprise. From Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. I had a good time to talk to you. It can be fun again. You'll see what. I don't like stop it. Smiley face. As you can probably recall, I hadn't given this asshat my email address. However, logical answer, someone else on the channel must have. He obviously came back to #ReeferSales, asked someone who I was, and that douchebag completely betrayed me, knowing I don't give out my personal contact info. Although, the email was dated 2/40. That's pretty much the moment I went to bed, when everyone on the channel was still idle. Even though I well and truly knew I was taking some sort of bait, I responded. From Charles Watts to Funnymouth@blood.com. Yeah, bro, not exactly sure I want you emailing me. It was clear and to the point. There was no mistaking the message I was sending, and though it was snippy, I wasn't goading him into replying by starting a flame war. But, of course, from Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. Come on, don't be so sad about it. I know you can like it. We will have fun a lot of the time. It's okay, even. And with that, I blocked his address. Really, I should have done that in the first place, but I still had some sick sort of interest in exactly where this was going. Maybe if I put my foot down, he would admit he was just screwing around and call me a humorless wet blanket. When I saw it was just the same old bullshit, that gave me the green light to go ahead and shut the guy out. For what it's worth, you can relax at this point. The blocking stuck. There was no follow-up message circumventing the ban. After a few minutes, I assured myself that was all over, and I went about my day. It wasn't until I got home at dusk that the cold, squirming feeling in my stomach started all over again, and I had no idea why. Well, that's not entirely true. I had some idea. I checked my email. Nothing from Funnymouth. However, there was an email from Jorge. From Jorge G. to Charles Watts. Hey, ReeferSales.com is fucked up. I can't get shit to load. When you're online, please take a look ASAP. Peace and carrots. Jorge. I let out a string of curses. Downtime meant lost sales, and I'd been out all day with no way for Jorge to contact me. If I'd been a little less strict with my personal info, he could have just called me. I loaded the site and waited for some sort of error screen. Instead, it began to reroute to another page. Blood.com. From Charles Watts to Jorge G. Yeah, I see it. It's redirecting to a website with a giant pixelated face with a messed up tongue. I think this has to be that Funnymouth POS. Did you give him my email with the domain in it? CW. From Jorge G. to Charles Watts. It's a 404 page, not a redirect. I want what you're smoking. All I get on blood.com is a coming soon notice. I didn't give anyone shit. Jorge. From Charles Watts to Jorge G. Har har har. Funny. Then Jorge emailed me a screenshot of the site, giving him a 404 error, along with a coming soon notice for blood.com. He could have easily faked them, but why? I mean, if this was some sort of joke, it was pretty abstract, and I didn't get it. When I looked at my website files, everything was normal. Nothing was out of place, and nobody had even logged on to change anything. I checked the domain name's name servers, the thing that routes a domain to where it's supposed to go, and nothing was out of sorts. Still, there was this bloated, tongue-wagging face looking back at me, with its empty eye sockets. Then, I don't know how I missed it in the first place. Looking closely, the picture of that face wasn't really pixelated. It was made of tiny letters, HTML code coloring each letter specific to the image. Over and over again, the word that made up that image was right in front of me. Funny mouth, funny mouth, funny mouth, funny mouth, in a great cluster of nonsense. I felt like spitting at the screen. I unblocked his email address and set about writing an incredibly profane and threatening letter. I didn't really care if I got the site back at this point. I just wanted to get everything off my chest, so I could feel like I was in control of the situation again. Before I could finish the letter, I got this weird, creepy feeling again. That, no, it couldn't be, feeling where you know you're being absurd, but at the same time you know you're right. I stopped hacking out my death threats and checked the inbox. From Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. I see your handsome face. From Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. Hello, buddy. From Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. Come on. From Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. Hello. From Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. Hello, hello, hello. From Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. I don't want to not. From Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. I don't think about it, please, though. From Funnymouth@blood.com to Charles Watts. I see your handsome face. Not only was that feeling correct, the feeling that he had already emailed me the minute I unblocked him, but it seemed like he had been steadily emailing me non-stop since I blocked him. 10 more letters arrived just within the time span it took me to reply. From Charles Watts to Funnymouth@blood.com. Fucking stop. I was getting a stress headache. My heart was pounding. Not from fear, but rage. This was probably the most absurdly infuriating person on the internet. And that's saying a lot. Thankfully, the string of letters did indeed stop. I tried to calm myself down, breathing deeply, but it didn't seem to take. I was still incredibly pissed. Slowly, methodically, I sent him another note. From Charles Watts to Funnymouth@blood.com. Hi, I don't understand what you are saying, and I do not understand what you want. I think there may be a language barrier. Is your first language English? I think you have done something to my website, and I would like you to undo it. If you are mad at me, I did not intend this to happen. You may have misunderstood what I said or what I meant. Please, change my website back, and let's both go our separate ways. Thank you. CW. I waited. I thought about how I'd conquered my anger, and that this measured response was really the best way to go about it. This fellow would understand what I meant. He'd realize the mistake he made. I calmed down. Everything was going to be okay. Then From Funnymouth at blood.com to Charles Watts. Staring face. I hit the roof. I hit the goddamned roof and went clear through it. I smacked the monitor with my palm, knocking it clear off the desk. That pissed me off even more, as I drove my fist into the keyboard repeatedly until the keys flew free. I screamed out a mixture of frustration with myself and rage over the situation and stormed out of the room, knocking down anything and everything I could get my hands on. For as long as I could manage the energy, I laid waste to my own shit. I would have started a fire and burned the fucking place down if I had a lighter on hand. That night, I stared at the ceiling for what must have felt like an eternity before sleep came. Waiting for sleep, I knew I was going to have a nightmare. I just knew it. That was how my luck was going. Imagine how surprised I was, even in sleep, when, instead of some horrific setting, I was someplace safe. The woods. I laid in the grass again. I felt the relaxation. I knew, even my subconscious knew, that everything would be okay. No matter what setbacks life threw at me, the world would go on. Nothing was permanent. Everything was in transition. Nobody could really get to me. I felt the squirming against my neck. Nope, no dice. Nothing can spoil this right now. I ignored the worm. It would go away. I felt the squirming move to my mouth. Now, I couldn't will myself awake. Every other time I'd been able to decide to wake up, but it seemed like that opportunity had now passed. Then, it wasn't a worm. It was a finger, then another, then more until 4 slimy, squirming digits were locked around my teeth, clutching my lower jaw. It didn't hurt when it happened. It was just sort of like a pop. More pressure than pain. It was quick, and before I even knew what was going on, it was over. I then managed to force myself awake. I sat up and got to my feet in complete darkness, feeling my way around the walls. I made my way into the bathroom. There, I finally flicked a light switch. I stood before the mirror, rubbing my eyes as the harsh light blinded me. I stared into the mirror for minutes on end, with no reaction, no feelings, no thoughts. Then, I smiled. I smiled as best as I could. Now that my jaw was completely broken, hanging loose around my neck, my tongue lolled out listlessly, like a paralyzed gooey slug. My teeth weren't rooted at anything but threads of flesh, and I could pull them out by hand, with about the same discomfort as a needle prick. I laughed, the halting sound coming out like a gurgle of a backed-up sewer drain. What a handsome face. What a funny mouth. 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 Lemon Lime Skull has joined. #refer sales. Lemon Lime Skull. I see your handsome face. Don't be so sad about it. Smiley face. Ghost Jorge. Hey, where the fuck were you? Hello? Charles? Lemon Lime Skull is now known as Funnymouth. Funnymouth. Staring face. Funnymouth has left. Hashtag reefer sales. The end. And that was Funnymouth by Slimebeast. Slimebeast is certainly a legendary and talented writer, and I certainly enjoyed this story, although I can't say I enjoyed it as much as I did when I heard it all those years ago. It isn't necessarily that the story does anything wrong per se, rather it all seems sort of random by the end of it. The whole Funnymouth character is basically just an internet troll that also has the supernatural ability to disfigure people in their dreams. Similar to Freddy Krueger, I suppose. I suppose in general, supernatural horror does have an element of randomness inherent to the genre itself, which may be why it isn't my favorite. Besides that, upon reading the story for the first time, I discovered an interesting bit of foreshadowing. When the main character is describing the nightmares he's had in the past, he describes a man who's getting his tongue ripped out, similar to what befalls him at the end of the story. And being as the entire purpose of creepypastas are to be short and viral scary stories, I'd say this story captures that spirit well, especially with the twist ending, which I'm a sucker for. In the end, I can't say I prefer this story when compared to others such as Necrosleep, but being as it's one of the first I've ever heard, it'll always have a special place in my heart. And it isn't a half-bad story in its own right. This story definitely feels like something I would have seen in a YouTube comment section back in 2006, demanding that you spread it in other comment sections or have the same fate befall you. Which, when you think about it, those were the origins of the creepypastas we know and love today. And for that reason, this story is definitely deserving of the praise it receives, and will continue to in the future. I'd like to take a moment to thank everybody who's visited my channel and been watching Kachimuchi's Game and Spooks for the past 3 years. I suppose it isn't much of a secret that I base my entire format off of some ordinary gamer's creepypastas, the ones he made in the olden days of YouTube. I myself have always enjoyed listening to creepypastas while watching video game footage, and so I decided to give it a try for myself. I guess I'm just a sucker for nostalgia as well. And as I said in the opening of the video, I'm not as foolish as I may seem. I know hardly anybody really watches these videos. But I'd like to offer a heartfelt thanks for everybody who does and will in the future. I definitely don't intend to make it big on YouTube, but it would be nice to have a corner to call my own. In the spirit of that, let's hope the next 3 years are just as good as the previous. All things considered, I guess I should say. And so once again, thank you very much for watching or listening to this 3rd anniversary edition of Kachimuchi's Game and Spooks. Why not do us a kindness and leave a like or a comment, or subscribe. And don't be afraid to offer any suggestions for other creepypastas below. And most important of all, Merry Christmas. This has been Kachimuchi, and that's about all I have to say about that. Farewell.